Kevin is actually a nonprofit coach that works with nonprofit entrepreneurs from inception and startup through scaling, as well as experienced leaders and organizations keen to get the best out of their people and automate results. He supports nonprofits in the US, Canada, and UK, where he's currently based. He hosts the weekly Nonprofit Problem Solver podcast, which has a Facebook group and a Clubhouse club, and offers group coaching courses at nonprofitentrepreneur.com. So that's just a little bit about Kevin from my introduction. So Kevin, why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself, just a short introduction about yourself and why we're going to be speaking about the impact statement today.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jesse. Really appreciate it. So, as Jesse said, I'm a nonprofit coach. I've worked for the last 30 years in a wide range of human services across the whole of healthcare, social care, and education. And I was in a number of different roles over that period, but never as a practitioner. My job was always some sort of strategic project leader or taking some sort of transformation initiative. And so I had to support the frontline staff or the practitioners, whether it was doctors and nurses or therapists or social workers or teachers. So yeah, I admired what it is that they did in their day job. And my job was to help them do their job better. And so when we reconfigured services, I was typically on the hook for the service doing better in some way, some form of performance. And what the main struggle was, that people recognize this from any sort of organizational change management, but it's very easy to get distracted with all the things going on, all the chaos. It's easy to lose sight of why we're there in the first place. So you're serving people in these human services, and that's the impact. That's the whole reason you exist. And when you're changing offices, or you're changing job titles, or your job's at risk, or you got to use a different system, or the language is changing, it comes with lots of different things. People get a bit bent out of shape about those things, and it's easy to lose sight, as I said, about the performance. So my objective was always to work with people in a way that allowed them to take those changes in stride and actually do better in terms of the impact they had on the people they were serving. And I found that in whether it was a role that I was in as a sort of an employee or consultant, someone I was working with, or talking to colleagues, other coaches and consultants, is this lack of focus on impact is a problem. It's hard to get things done right and done well if you are not focused on it. So that's why I always remind people about the impact of what they're doing rather than the why. I mean, the why is important, and the impact should be part of that.
Okay, awesome. And what led you into helping the nonprofits then, as your life you figured out what you're really good at helping people with, and what led you more to nonprofits with this?
Well, I guess it's the language I speak and the culture that I'm familiar with in terms of constructing services and programs to help people in need who are vulnerable in one way or another, whether it's a health need or a social care need, or any type of human service that makes the world a better place. So people in nonprofits are starting businesses to fix something that they see broken in their community. And there may or may not be a profit motive associated with that. And it's important that you obviously meet your financial goals as an entrepreneur. Even if you're in a nonprofit, you still need to bring revenue in a different way. And I think those challenges are quite a bit different to say tech startups in the for-profit sector and those things. And I think the balance, the additional requirements for nonprofits mean to me that there's great scope for help for people who are starting and leading nonprofits.
Okay, awesome. So you got the skills, you've learned some things along the way, and you want to help people that are making an impact for good, other than just a startup tech company, for example, that's just only making money. That's awesome, Kev.
Right.
So,
So there are different there. So there's the way to try to think is there's three basic stages. There's the genuine startup, and all the things that involves. Then there's scaling. So once you sort of got your feet, your flight legs, your sea legs, as it were, you then need to scale and start to actually build your business. And then there's basically a much longer third stage of where you've really got a team of people, and so your focus changes from working in the business to working on the business and trying to lead a group of people to perform at their best. And so those are really the three broad stages. And so I work with groups at all stages of those points.
Awesome. All right. So kind of reeling it in on the focus of today's webinar is the impact statement. And Kev, you and I have talked about this just a little bit, and it got my own head running around what Continue to Give does and what my own nonprofit Hope Through Jesus does, where we work in Tanzania. So just a little bit about the impact statement, maybe just some intro to it, and I can ask you some more questions, and we'll dive deep at why the impact statement is so important and why we're talking about that today.
Yeah. So I tend to use a sort of provocative way of starting in this. And I tell people that, your mission doesn't matter. And they're like, what? I've spent so much time working on my mission statement. And, and obviously I don't mean that your mission doesn't really matter, but what I mean is that when you're speaking to people about your nonprofit, leading with your mission is only going to get you so far. Because the fact is that the way we write mission statements and the purpose that mission statements serve is different to what people want to hear when they asking themselves, or when you're trying to convince them that they should support you, whether giving their time or their money or what have you. And so it's not that they work across purposes, but the mission statement is not really fit for that purpose. So a mission statement, when we write them, we use ambitious language, inspirational language. We talk about some distant future, medium to long term, the way we want to see the world. The problem when you are introducing your business or your programs or services to others in the hopes that they support you, is that the mission statement is not going to inspire them like that inspires you and your team. They're trying to think, I could support lots of different people. Why should I support you in particular? And so they want to know what it is that you do right now, not what you're hoping to see in 10 or 15 years. And when you look at a mission statement, if you think about it, I like to think of it as sort of 30,000 feet. If you're 30,000 feet in the air, there's a lot of real estate underneath you.
Yeah.
And so you could be working in your programs and services anywhere under that 30,000 feet. And so the mission statement doesn't indicate what it is you're actually doing right now in addressing the problem that you say you're trying to fix. And so what happens then, if you're lucky enough that someone doesn't just turn away, but it engages you in conversation, what people then goes, oh, well, let's see the next step. Well, let me tell you about my programs and services. Let me tell you how they work. Well, that's not what they want to know either. They want to know what change they create for the people or the communities that you serve. And that's what the impact statement does. There isn't any other sort of terse, quick statement that does it. It's not your elevator speech, because that sort of, again, serves a different purpose. But when you're having conversations, which is really the basics of all the way that we communicate with people, and we introduce our nonprofit and try and build our support networks, we need a way of saying in like seconds, literally almost instantaneously, what change you're making right now.
So if I can ask some questions, so you got, like you said, you got your mission statement, and then you've got the how we do it, right? So you're saying in between there, like, well, actually how we're doing it, but what actually happened. So are you talking, give some examples of.
Yeah.
how
Great.
you kind of maybe convert that just a little bit, because a lot of people out there, like you said, real high level. Our mission statements to bring educational, spiritual, and financial hope to people through the power of Jesus. Now,
Right.
that's really high level, like you said.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
and,
Exactly.
and then I can come in and say, and we do that and we have a number of different programs that we do.
Right.
And you're
Right.
saying,
Which is your how. Which is your how. Right.
I haven't hit the impact statement yet.
Right. So what you've done, and that is I would say 99.9% of the people that I speak to have exactly that. They've got a mission statement which concisely captures what they're trying to do in the big picture way, 30,000 feet
Mm-hmm.
or 10,000, somewhere up in the air. And
Yeah, yeah.
then they can very eloquently articulate what sort of services they're doing and so on. And of course, that starts to sort of say where under that, in that real estate under the 30,000 feet you are. But what people, when you think about why people give, um, they generally are not joining an effort. They want to be part of the solution. They
Mm-hmm.
want to fund something that they know works. And
Yeah.
so what it is, so when people use words like education or teaching or learning, that's an activity that people do, but what's the outcome? What's the outcome of that? So I this exercise where I go with people, go through creating the impact statement with people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny because everyone will start from their mission statement and start to hack away at it and try and get it down to something of what they're doing, and that never works. It never works.
Okay.
um,
Uh-huh.
uh, and there's lots of reasons we could talk about why that's not the right approach. But basically, an impact statement sits right above your programs. Your programs are on the ground, and then you want one statement typically that captures the change you make. So let me give you an example. I was
Okay.
working with a woman, I think in Alabama, who had two shelters for vets, and her mission statement was quite flowery about the life changing services and programs she has for homeless vets, and that she gets them jobs, and that she's part of a pathway of with working with other housing providers and all this stuff. But their impact statement, like what she does right now, not her dreams or the overall goals of what society is going to look like. Her impact statement was, we help homeless veterans get housing. That's it. Because that's what they're doing right
Yep.
now. And people are like, well, that's there's no aspirational thing, there's no inspiration, it's just really matter of fact of like, yes, that's exactly that's the difference. Your mission
Mm-hmm.
statement is your aspiration for the way the world you want it to be. Your impact statement is, what impact are you making today? What are you doing right now that is working towards that problem? And it's like, we're providing housing for people who are homeless. Boom. And it in itself, it has an impact. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it
Mm-hmm.
says, this is our solution. It's not we're hoping to provide housing. It is,
Yeah.
we provide housing for people who are homeless.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really simple. It's not how you do it. It's not how big the property is. It's not, is it for men? Is it for women? Is it, it's, mean, if that was appropriate for the way you want to describe your impact, you can obviously add some detail there, but it's not about the how or the why. It's just the what, and it's the outcomes for the people that you serve.
Okay, great. So it's not necessarily like you got to have pictures of the impact you've already created, because then you start talking of what if, it could be a little easier if you've already done something for 2 years and you've got success stories and you've got people. So let's maybe take an organization like mine that does have success behind it. And if this is appropriate, Kev, maybe we could take
Sure.
mine and just do an example of how you get to that
Yeah,
impact
I'd
statement.
love to do that. Yeah, and
So,
the fact that you have results is the key thing, because let's face it, your business, even though you're not for profit, which means you don't remove money out of the business and put it in your back pocket. It stays
Mm-hmm.
there. And because you're working for a social purpose, this is the deal with the tax man. Is that you're not going to pay tax because you're not taking it out as income. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't pay yourself, but the
Yeah,
business is there to achieve a social purpose.
absolutely. So what are some of the questions you would ask me to help me or anyone watching this so they could go through these steps to arrive at their impact statement?
Right. So, and this might be a useful point to refer to the handout. And there is I use typically a sort of fill in the blank template, which is at the bottom of page 2 on that PDF. And by the way, what that is, and you'll see at the bottom, you'll see the logo for Nonprofit Entrepreneur Academy. That's the this is literally the tool that we have in the lesson. There is a lesson dedicated to impact statements. So we go through how to do it. So how do you write an impact statement? There is this generic version, number 1. We could talk about number 2 in a second, but number 1 is basically we help this group, and you describe them in a way which is appropriate. And you may add their problem, go from basically point A to point B, or sometimes you can just use your point B. So if you try to fit what you're doing in that sort of template and ignore your mission statement for a moment, just try and do that. We help this group go from here to there, or we help this group achieve point B, and you'll probably crack it pretty quickly.
All right, so let me start out because I haven't done this before either. So this will be really, really cool to do. And then other people that are watching with us now or watch later can kind of I'll start out with my mission statement again. So my mission and vision is, like you said, really high, to bring spiritual, educational, and financial hope through Jesus. So my next task would be, Kev, if you want to say it again. So I take that and...
No, you want to ignore that altogether.
Yep. So okay.
So what you don't want to do is you don't want to take your mission statement and then from 30,000 feet and hack away at it so it comes down to the ground. Because there's 2 reasons why you can't do that. One is there's very little that's matter of fact about your mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's using big words and big ideas, and that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
Secondly, so the words aren't there for you to hack away. And secondly, you've probably, like most leaders, put a lot of time and effort working with your board, maybe, trying to craft this in a way that that rolls off the tongue, that it's there. And it's actually subconsciously painful to try to get to hack away at it. So I think leave it alone in its pristine state and ignore it. Let's think of your results and the people you serve and the programs you run. And we're just going to sit right on top of that because I know you run more than one program. So you don't want an impact statement per program. You want one that sort of is literally just captures all of them. So you think of who the people are that you serve and what's the point B that they no longer need your program. They may move on to another, doesn't mean that they don't need any support, but your program specifically ends.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to take a stab at it and then you tell me like yay or nay or where I go from here. So so I don't want to give the how we do it exactly. I want to get this impact.
Right. Ignore the how. Ignore that. And this is, you can just think of the results. As you said, you're getting results. What are some of the results you get? Where are people, what's the change that is happening for people that you would consider results? That's sort of your point B.
Yeah. Okay. So we're helping the church be the hands and feet of Christ. We're helping equip the church to do the work that God has called us to do as they reach out to the community around them as the church.
Okay. So in terms of for a result, if you were going to work with a specific church in Tanzania, for example, how would you know that you have been able to do that? There'll be at various points that these churches will be at when you start working with them. But at what point, what does it look like for them when you say they've got it? They're actually doing this. So that they understand what we were here to do. Our best use of our time now is to work with someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I guess I'm kind of getting into the what we do a little bit. So our impact is when the pastors have been trained and they know their
Mm-hmm.
Bible inside and out, and the church is reaching out to the widows of their community and the less fortunate of their community, and supporting them as the church grows and as the people in the church prosper through the small loan program that we implement, and we see them start to now reach out to others instead of just needing for themselves.
Okay, so that's great. So um, what your results then are looking like: the pastors gaining some level of biblical literacy
Mm-hmm.
and translating that to outreach, some sort of social welfare outreach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm using probably the wrong terminology, but I'm just trying to use some words that capture what I think you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we're training up the pastors, like you said, and then also coming alongside them, kind of subsidizing some of the programs financially until then the church starts living what they're learning in the church and reaching out to the community around them and supporting those less fortunate than themselves.
Okay, so uh, it sounds like if we use generic version one, so you could say we help, and the specific group of people could be pastors on their own. It could be pastors and their congregations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, who, and maybe the described problem, we could skip that, or you might want to put something in that says that they've recognized, or they have a desire to promote or work, what's the right word, to support the welfare of their congregants of their communities, move
Mm-hmm.
from and again we could skip point A, that's sort of optional, to move to or gain, you could put biblical literacy and sustainable social programs, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that,
Okay.
self-sustaining social programs. So we help pastors in churches. um, uh, we help pastors. You could say, let's say, let me think about this.
I got
We
some more
help.
coming to my mind too. So really,
Okay, good.
we help pastors and congregations in poor communities that are in need get to a point where they can start reaching out and benefiting the community around them.
Yeah, that's you're getting there. I think some of the words when we, and I haven't written this down, but if we were typing this out, what I often do with people is I get a big Google Doc that we share, and I'm typing it as they speak, and then we go and tighten up some of those words. So,
Okay.
like helping the community, you would want to be something. You would want to say something really specific. It could be, is it feeding people, housing people? What
Hmm.
is it that is doing? Because help is too broad or generic a term. So
Okay.
yeah, you're getting it exactly. And then I think once we've done this exercise, it'd be useful to rehearse how you would use this impact statement in your work.
Okay.
But
Awesome.
let's
Yeah.
see if you want to finish this off, we can. I think. And how are we doing for time?
Well, yeah, we don't want to keep it too long. I'll give one more shot at it, and then we can talk about how
Okay.
to use this to inspire the different people and the different aspects. So yeah, so I've hit you with my high level, and you're kind of like, okay, you want to solve world peace, so does everyone else, and then
Yeah, yeah.
I bring it down to point A, like you said, like we we impact the community by helping the local churches and the pastors through we impact the local community by raising up the local churches and pastors that were in need and raising them up to a point where they no longer need our help, but they'll reach out and start supporting the community around them through various programs that the church sees, such as supporting widows or small loan programs like that. So we help that church get out of the point of needing our help to actually reaching out and helping the community around them.
Right. And so in the needs for those churches, would that include financial need when you start working with them?
Yes, it includes
Is
financial
that
needs.
really the primary thing? Is like, okay, you're moving them from a point of financial need to where they are actually delivering sustainable social programs to their communities.
Yes. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
So the way to try closes off says we help pastors and communities in financial need um, grow to deliver sustainable social programs to their communities, or so, something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Where and then it's really clear that that's what you're doing, and then even underneath that impact statement, as I said, there's could be 2 or 3 different ways that you do that because it doesn't mention the how,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can review your impact statement as as your programs and services evolve. So your mission statement may never change.
Yeah.
Most mission statements have at least a shelf life which matches the sort of long-term strategic planning. So that sort of 3 to 5 year cycle, and people will brush it off and have a look at it again and might tweak it. But impact statements often live for a much shorter period because if you're successful, you're doing what you're doing, you generally grow.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked out how to make programs successful, and successful programs are the heart and soul of what a nonprofit is there to do. So if you're running, if you are running a successful program, you really shouldn't have any difficulty raising money and gaining support for that program if you have something like an impact statement to describe it. If you are not running successful programs, an impact statement can help focus what it is that you're trying to do. So say, for example, you were just starting out and we came up with an impact statement, which was just like we just did, but it's somewhat aspirational. In other words, you're not doing that consistently well, but you're getting there. This is what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Then having that impact statement helps you make decisions about how you run your business, because you know exactly what it is that you are trying to achieve in a way that you can't possibly know
Mm-hmm.
without it.
Exactly. All right. So how am I using this impact statement now? Give me some of the times when it's appropriate to lay it out, whether it's with my staff or with potential donors or current donors. Give me some tips on putting this to use.
Right. So I'll give you, these are all from people I've worked with who've had their impact statements. I'll give you at least 3 or 4. So one person came back to me within like 48 hours of doing this online and said, Kev, he said, I took it to our board meeting, and I know you said we didn't need to have it approved by the board, but I was so excited. I shared it with my board. I just emailed to them, and the response was, wow, finally I understand what it is we're trying to do.
and
This is the
that
board.
because legally you need a board. So sometimes you get people because you need people, right? And you're kind of taking them on. So you got to get the board on board.
Right.
That's important.
And then, but again, it's that level of clarity. Oh,
Yeah.
this is what we do. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you under that 30,000 feet, if you don't answer the question, what under that 30,000 feet are we specifically doing? Not necessarily the why or the how. It's what is it that we're actually doing? Then people will answer that question for themselves. The other element is that when you have that impact statement, you've sort of carved out your niche, and you don't then have a board that says, well, maybe we should be doing over this over here or over that over there. So the other example, again with the board, was a conversation where it was very clear that having the impact statement armed the executive director to have a very different conversation with her board than she did only a few weeks before, when it was in its COVID. And they're trying to say, oh, okay, what do we do with our fundraising? Do we pivot our programmings? Do we consider a merger? Do we stop doing, what is it that we do? And everyone said, well, go and look at your mission statement. Well, the mission statement didn't answer a single question because it's so high level that any answer that they might consider is consistent with their mission statement. So their mission statement was not useful in answering those questions. But the impact statement, on the other hand, was very useful, because this is what we do. It's like, well, why would we merge with that organization just because we like them?
Yeah,
We get on with them, but they don't do what we do. That would
exactly.
mean we're running two very different programs. Like, we don't even serve the same community. That doesn't make any sense.
So it can really
So
help you focus too, as well. When
right.
you know what you're doing, then you can go do it.
Right. So that's from a governance point of view. And there's a reference, I think, is on page 1, which is, we all know what restaurants and stores are trying to do. As small businesses, they need to bring in more money than they spend in order to make a profit. Everybody knows that. Whether you ever eat there or shop there, you know that every small business, retail business, is trying to do that. And yet enormous proportions fail. Right? The staff know, the managers, everybody knows what has to happen for a store or a restaurant to survive, and they crash it and burn all the time. And in our nonprofit world, we have this level of vagueness that we seem to be comfortable about, but we don't have that. We don't have that profit motive, although we obviously need to be financially viable. That's not what we're here for, because we're not giving that money to shareholders to take away and buy stuff with. We're trying to meet a social purpose. So we need a really clear threshold to understand what our success is, and the impact statement does that in a way. Again, the mission statement can't, because it serves a different purpose.
Awesome. So we talked about the board. Where's another really good place to put this?
So the one I love the best is the sort of networking, building your support. So nonprofits are a team sport. So as leaders, as entrepreneurs, we should be out talking about our nonprofit all the time. But we don't go into, if you imagine yourself at a function and there's 3 or 4 people and you join the conversation, we know how to do this as adults, right? But what you wouldn't do is take a big placard with your nonprofit name and mission statement on it and shove it in people's faces, right? Well, this is often how we use social media or whatever to try and introduce conversations, right? We don't want to do it that way. What we want to do is be able to enter a conversation by listening and understanding. It's like, oh, okay, is this group of people people that I want to have a conversation with? And the impact statement is a great, you could not necessarily a conversation starter, but if you can share a story or some sort of result or some elements, like, oh yeah, we do that in my nonprofit. Really? Tell us about your nonprofit. What does your nonprofit do? You're not going to, if you put your mission statement there, you've lost them. Too high level. If you say, oh, we, and you get into the weeds of your programming and the how, you've lost them. But if you can say, we support pastors and congregations who are financially struggling, turn into not just be viable, but support their communities with their own social programs, then people are like, oh, well, how do you do that? Or where do you do that? And then suddenly you've got the floor. You got all these people talking, and you can then lead the conversation, yield to them where they want the conversation to go. And that's the stage of that sort of potential donor journey, where they've expressed some interest, and now you start cultivating it. And then you've got, that this person is actually interested in the solution that you have.
Okay.
So that's my favorite one, because what we just described, you can imagine in a number of different configurations and a different number of contexts. But we have these conversations, or we should be having these conversations all the time with lots of different people. And when we're seeking support, it's really like a filtering mechanism. We're doing that, looking for the needle in the haystack of the person who's going to want to fulfill their own goals by giving time or money to us. And we need to find those people. And again, an impact statement is a much better filter to find those people quickly than a mission statement or the how.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And no one wants your 30-second elevator pitch, because people don't like being pitched unless they have asked you, pitch me, in a formal pitch competition. Or sometimes you'll get sometimes people go, okay, what's your elevator pitch? They'll ask you for it. But no, people actually don't really want to be pitched,
All right. So that is some good stuff. So we've talked about separating the mission from the how and getting that impact statement somewhere in there. Can start the conversation, can gain focus on it so people know this is what we do. This is our impact. Maybe this is how we do it, but it can get people focused. A lot of great stuff, Kev. So before we kind of go on to talking a little bit more about you and how you can help, because we'll go on to that. I guess what would be like a 2 sentence take home point for everyone before we kind of wrap up this part, and then also introduce some of your services to the people watching.
Yeah. So to me, it boils down to if you have not articulated the impact you're trying to deliver right now, how are you successfully doing it? Yes. Because you're not, that impact does not happen by accident. You need to have that level of intention and focus because there are a million things to get us distracted. So
Awesome.
the purpose of having that is to provide that focus internally for your own programs, and it's basically keeping your eye on the ball.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think that kind of wraps up some of this stuff. I hope everyone is getting some really good points about this, how to get from that 30,000 feet and into the weeds, but somewhere in between when you talk to people and are able to use this. So, Kev, I just want to take some time to thank you for coming because I know you're busy. You have a coaching business, and this is what you do, and you help people successfully. So, if you want to just kind of take the stage a little bit and tell people about that are watching this now and also people that might watch this in the future. Your elevator pitch, I guess you get to give them one. How are you going to impact it? What is your impact that you do that will help these nonprofits achieve their goals? And if there's any great offers that you have on the table for today's session, anyone watching it, yeah, feel free. The link, we can put it, if you do have a link, we can put it in the blog later. People just
Yep.
watching it may or may not see the link. So, but go
Okay.
ahead and tell people a little
Yeah.
bit.
So what do you? I've got a coaching partner, Katie Blomquist, who's a founder of a nonprofit in Charleston, South Carolina. She runs that full time, and then we've got 4 different programs, coaching programs through Nonprofit Entrepreneur Academy. So we've got a 90-day, approximately 90-day, if you do a lesson a week, which is for startups, which is the Ignition and Momentum playbook. And then we've got a follow-on from that, which is a good starting point for people who've been around for a while and need to improve their fundraising, or they need to attract a lot more supporters. That's the Accelerate and Scale playbook. It's also around 14, 15 lessons, and they're very similar to sort of what this handout shows. We do anywhere from 5 to 10 minute video, and there's a tool or a template to work through. And the coaching clients, students, if you will, are supported through weekly coaching calls. And then we've got other ways, a couple of video apps and emails and stuff to be in touch with people all the time. So we sort of give you your own tailored pathway through the lessons. There's also Changemaker Flight School, which is a 6-month course, and that is a lot more lessons, around 20 to 25, broken across fundraising, the board management, program development, and media and marketing. And those are, again, same sort of structure of lessons, but for more experienced people who are trying to diversify their funding streams or are trying to get the best out of their people because they're now built their businesses up to a certain point, or maybe their nonprofit's been around for 40 years or something and possibly stagnated, and they're new in their role and they want to take it to the next level. So that Changemaker Flight School is about every lesson has something to make things faster, which is the speed, and then something to make it better, which is lift. So to fly, you need speed and lift. So that's why it's called Changemaker Flight School. And people don't necessarily follow that from one end to the other. They sort of pick and choose what's most important to them. As I said, that's over 6 months. And then there's another course which is all about time habits. It's called Time Habits Control Panel, and that is one where people who are, short of time, like we are as entrepreneurs, often focus a lot on their scheduling and productivity, but there's actually a lot to our habits that is unconscious, and things that we've been doing for a long time, about the way we make decisions around distractions and boundaries and the way we even think and experience time. So the control panel is an 8-week course that gives people the tools that they need to sort of restructure how they think and experience time to make them much more productive, even before you get to the scheduling apps and things like that. So those are the main ways that that I support people, and I do occasionally work with people one-to-one, but it's obviously a lot more intense and a lot more expensive. What the lessons do is give you all the tools that you need for each step. You don't have to think about what to do, how to do it, or when to do it, because it's all laid out for you. And then through the coaching, which is very personal, we do things like mindset and and the sort of cheerleading and things that you would expect a coach to do. And what you get in a group environment is actually quite rich, in that you not only make new friends and expand your network, but you hear about what other people are experiencing in their own situations. And the classic one I get is then when people listen to other students talk about the challenges they have with their board, for example, they think, God, I know I'm about to embark on some more board recruitment. I got to avoid that problem. And I never would have thought of that unless I'd heard that other person, describe what that issue was. Or the same as with problems they have with partner organizations, or problems they might have with a grant or a funder. So all those sorts of things that you might not anticipate, and it makes it a much more affordable experience for folks. Now, what I do normally is offer there's payment plan to go by month. But if you pay in full, I give people a 1-hour personality profile, which is specifically around their nonprofit entrepreneurship, elements of their personality. So they go do a little fun assessment, takes 10 or 15 minutes, and then we spend an hour going through that. And it's really helpful to people to identify their strengths and their weaknesses and things like that. So I'll make that available even on the payment plan to people who come through Jesse. And what I would always recommend is that people book a call with me. So I'll make sure that Jesse can circulate my Calendly link. It's easily available on the website, nonprofitentrepreneur.com. I think it's available on every page. Just click here and you can schedule time with me. And I strongly urge doing that, because maybe the program is not for you. And I don't want you to be in an environment if it's not. It's a good way for us to just clarify that which of the programs would be right for you, or if any of them. And I want people to be matched up in an ideal way. So book that call with me. We can take you through that, and I'll give you the personality profile. Even on the monthly payment plan. And if you do pay in full, then I'll give you an extra 2 hours of one-to-one coaching.
Awesome. Well, you guys heard that. I'm really learning, education doesn't stop at high school or college, because that's general. And then once you're doing something, a lot of people kind of stop. And opportunities like working with Kev, they're just great. They can help you focus on things. He can help identify problems. So I really encourage you to take a look at his courses, take a look at what he has to offer. As always, continue to give, makes great tools, but we want to help you guys with more than just the tools. And that's why we're speaking with Kev today. So with that, I hope you guys can take advantage of these opportunities he's given. Hope you learned a lot about the impact statement. Kev, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And sharing with this. And yeah, I guess for everyone that's watching now and later, that's a wrap on this. So thank you guys.